The top and bottom margins of each page are also known as headers and footers. As you can see over here in the vertical ruler, we've got the shaded top 1-inch margin of every page, also known as the header or header section. And then of course at the bottom of every page we've got our shaded part of the ruler, the bottom 1-inch margin, also known as the footer. Now if you can't see your headers or footers, or the rulers for that matter, then come up here and click on the View tab, go to the Views group, and select Print Layout. And then come over here to the Show group and check Ruler. And if you still can't see your headers and footers, then you probably have white space being hidden. As you recall in an earlier training video, you can hover over in between two pages, and you get the prompt to double-click to hide the white space, which includes the headers and footers. So if I double-click on that, oh, there you go. Can't see my headers or footers, but it's nice when I'm reading my document that I don't have to scroll past all this white space or have my eye jump so far. Like when I get to the bottom of this page, it's not too far to get to the top of the next. In any case, we want to be able to view our headers and footers, so we want to go back in between any two pages until you get the prompt to double-click to show the white space, and there we go. Now the whole purpose of headers and footers is that anything you add to them will be duplicated or repeated on every page throughout the entire document. For example, when you open up a book and you look at the top of each page, you'll see duplicated like the author's name, and then at the bottom of each page the page number. Well, to be able to do that within the document here, we need to access the header and footer sections. And you can do it one of a couple of ways. The first way is by coming up here, clicking on the Insert tab, going to the Header and Footers group, and there you go, Header and Footer. Click on Header, and you get these built-in templates that when you click on one of these, like where it says Type Here, it dumps you right into the header section of whatever page you're on. Well, there's my cursor, I'm on page 2. Which brings up a good point. Again, it doesn't matter what page you're on. When you start editing the header on page 2, it'll update and reflect in all the other headers on all the other pages. So it doesn't matter, page 2. I can either do that, or I can go ahead and go right into the header section and do my own custom thing. Or, let me click off. You can go to the footer section. Well, you pretty much get the same built-in templates, or you can go right into the footer of page 2. Click on Edit Footer, and there you go. I'm at the bottom. You get the footer tag, and you can see down below on the status bar, I'm on page 2 of 4. Now once you're in the footer or header section, you get the related Contextual Design tab for your header and footer, all the commands that can help you with it. And also, you can see in the main area of the document, it's faded. You can't click on it to edit it. You can either be in edit mode for the headers and footers or for the main document, but not both at the same time. So if you want to go ahead and come up here and close out of the header and footer, then you can go ahead and work in the main area of your document. And then to go back, of course, Insert, Header and Footer, click on Header, the drop-down arrow. You can use one of the templates or just jump right into it. If I use a template, like this one, click on it, it says Type Here. Well, that's all you're going to do is type here. Again, we're still working in page 2, so type here, just start typing. And then just like working in the main area of your document here, you can do whatever else you want here. You got the formatting options, so let me go ahead and hold down the Shift key, hit Home, so I can select everything from the end point where the cursor is flashing to the beginning of the line. And then I can right-click on it and bring up the mini formatting toolbar and type in time, hit Enter for Times New Roman. Fabulous. And then that should update and reflect on every single page in their header sections. So if I go ahead and click and drag up to page 1, it should be there. Fabulous. And then pages 3 and 4. And if I make any tweaks, it doesn't matter, because if I go ahead and do something on page 4 in the header section, then it also updates in all the others. Let me go ahead and get rid of that S. Now, how about a couple of shortcuts? Well, first off, instead of closing out of Close Header and Footer, you can actually double-click to get out of it. So you see the non-working area, just double-click on it, and I'm out. Want to go back in there? Well, there doesn't have to be something in the header or footer section to get into it. You can, for example, go down to the footer section and then just double click really fast right there. It takes me right into the footer. So cool, double click to get in, double click to get out. And then if I'm in the footer and I want to get to the header, of course you can go ahead and scroll up, right? Use the scrolly button on the mouse or use the scroll bar, but you also have the navigation group here on the Design tab that you can go ahead and say go to header, go to footer. Go to header, go to footer. Okay, so that's a quick jump as opposed to scrolling. And then once I'm here, if you want to add any additional text, well, look up here on the horizontal ruler. It's got some tab stops. So I've got my center tab and the right tab. And as you recall in the tab stops training video, when you go ahead and hit the tab key, it jumps over and stops at that stop, and then anything that you type in, it'll do an alignment off of it. Or how about if we go ahead and insert like maybe a picture? Design to insert to pictures. Okay, disclaimer, if you insert something that's pretty large and it doesn't fit within your header, it's going to open up and expand the header section. So for example, chrysanthemum, double click. Oh, that's horrifyingly huge. Well, as you recall in an earlier training video, you can actually resize your images by hovering over the bottom right hand corner resizing handle until you can see arrows pointing in opposite directions, then click and drag to push, 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 push. Oh my goodness. And then push, 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 push. Phew. And you'll notice that you got quite the header here. And if you want to be able to take this and move it up closer to the top of each page, you can see it's shaded here, and then you got your working area for your header section, and then you've got your, well, bottom margin that separates the header from the rest of the document. So if I want to be able to give me more space up at the top in the header section, then hover over in between the shaded area and the white working area until you can see the pop-up top margin, and you got arrows pointing up and down. Then click and drag, and then let go. Oh, okay, it just freaked out and it pulled me out, but it did move the text and the image up closer to the top. And so if I need to get back in, double click, and there we go. And we can just go ahead and do something like that there. In any case, you can do that. Let me go ahead and double click, and I'm just going to get rid of my image because that just doesn't seem to work. But if you had a logo and you want to go ahead and put it in the header so it updates and reflects on every single page when you print it out or when you hand it off to somebody, either electronically or through print off, well, there you go. Of course, now I can update this if I'd like. Maybe click the top margin to push the author's name down just a bit. Kicks me out. Double click to get back in it. In any case, you can go ahead and do your own tweakage. Let's go ahead and insert like a page number and also the date and time in the footer. So remember how you can come up here on the Design tab, Navigation group, and go to Footer. If you hit the down arrow key, well, it takes me down to the border separating the header from the rest of the document. But if I hit it again, that works too. Jumps right down to the footer section, or hit the up arrow key, jumps right up to the header section. So you can use that as your shortcuts if you don't want to come all the way up here to the Navigation group to click on the corresponding buttons. In any case, in the footer section here, let me come up here, click on the Home tab, show the codes. We got one teeny tiny code here that's size 5, and then this one right here is size 12 and Courier. In any case, let's go back to our Design tab, and let's insert some page numbers. Come over here to the header and footer group, click on page number, and hey, you can insert them at the top of the page, but I'm in the footer, so let's focus on the bottom or footer of each page. You can do a simple number, which is over aligned to the left, middle. I'm looking for something, there we go, page X of Y. The X is for the page number that you're on out of Y, out of how many pages there are total. So I can do it left, right, middle, or right aligned. Click on that, inserts it, cool. And then I can go ahead, if I don't like the font, click and drag. Mini formatting toolbar, do a times thing, hit enter, and then tab over to the size, type in 10, hit enter. That's looking better. And then notice when I select it, so I can update my selection to include Times New Roman, how page is highlighted in a lighter shaded gray, but the page numbers are in a darker shaded gray. Well, that's the dynamic code that Word has, so that way when you add additional pages, this has got to update automatically to, well, if I add one more page, so it says page 4 of 5, instead of me coming in here going, oh, I got to do it myself. No, those are the codes to do the update automatically for you after you insert your page numbers here. Sweet. And let's go ahead and insert a date. Come up here on the Design tab to the Insert group, click on Date and Time, and choose a format. Well, that's Christmas Eve. I shouldn't be working. Well, that's okay, I'm the boss. If I don't work it, I'll be fired. In any case, select it, and then you got the option to update it automatically. If you check it, that means that when I open this document in a few days, like on December the 26th, it'll automatically update to that current date. And so if I don't want to update it automatically, this is a one-time timestamp, date stamp, then uncheck it. I'll leave it checked. Click Okie dokie. And then, oh, that's right next to it, isn't it? Well, what we can do, let me come up here, click on the Home tab, go to the paragraph group, and take a look at the alignment. It's right aligned. So how about if we go left align and then use the tab stops? But you'll notice that the tab stops are already added for me when I inserted the page number, the coding that is for the page numbers. You've got your center align and then your right align. And if you don't know anything about tab stops, then you can watch my training video on tab stops. Assuming that you've seen it, if I go ahead with the cursor flashing in between the date and the page, hit the tab key, pushes it over to the first stop, and then when it stops there, it aligns its center to the stop. And when I hit the tab key again, stops at the next stop, and the alignment's going to be right align, so push everything to the left. That way, if it goes to the right, it won't go to the next line down below. For some other options, let's come up here and click on the Design tab, go to the Options group, and let's take a look at the different first page. You can see that when I hover over it in the pop-up, it says it'll give the first page a different header and footer from the rest of your document. So when you check it, it automatically clears out anything on that first page, which up in the header section was the author, and in the footer was the date and also the page numbers. Now, why would you want to do that? If your first page is the title page, typically you have nothing in the header and footer sections. But if you do want something on the title page in the header and footer that's different from the rest of the headers and footers throughout the document, then go ahead and check it. And to confirm it, let's go ahead and click and drag all the way up to page 1. And notice that it updated the header tag to first page header, and it cleared out anything that was in there, and that was the author. So when I scroll down to the bottom of the first page, we're in the first page footer, cleared out the date and the page numbers. So if I type in anything at the bottom of the first page, it will not duplicate on any other footers throughout the rest of the document because it's different. Now let's take a look at the different odd and even pages. Go ahead and check it, and automatically, excluding the first page because that's different, takes a look at the rest of the pages and says you're odd, you're even. So page 2 is even, of course, page 3 is odd, and page 4 is even, and so on. So you've got your odd page here, and notice that the odd page has the author's name, and at the bottom of the odd page in the footer has the date and also the page numbers, but not on the even pages. So if I'm like, oh, I don't like that, I mean, it's okay with the author being on the odd pages up at the top in the header section. As you recall, when you read a book, you'll see on one page in the header section maybe the author's name, and on the right-hand page something else, maybe like the name of the chapter. And so in this example, if I do want like the page numbers to continue on or to display in the footer of the even pages, then let's go ahead and just copy it. I'm going to do it from right to left because if I try to click and drag from left to right, it'll probably select the entire line, and that's annoying. Let me go ahead and do it from clicking right to left, and then Control-C to copy, and then scroll down to the bottom of an even page footer. Click in that paragraph mark, Control-V as in Victor to paste it, and I'd like it to be over to the far right. So let's come up here on the Home tab, paragraph group, it's left align, let's do right. Okay, that's nice. So whatever I do in one, that is, more specifically, even page, it'll update all the other even pages, but only the even pages, not the odds or not the first page. So I put this in the even page on page 4. As you can see down below in the status bar, like when I click in here down below, that's page 2. So it added it there as well. Now, when you're doing that, I'm scrolling back and forth going, oh, on the odd pages in the footer section, I like this, or in the even pages, the header section, I want this, or on the first page, I want this. You can click and drag and use the scrolly bar, of course, but you can also, up here on the Design tab in the Navigation group, use the Next and Previous. When you hover over it, you can see that it says in the pop-up you can jump to the previous header or footer. Now, these will only work if you have either the different first page checked or the different odd and even pages checked, or both. Otherwise, it won't work. So when I want to jump to, there's the cursor in the even page, I can go ahead and click Next, and it jumps to an odd page. And so if I had 50 pages in my document and I was working on page 26 in the footer section and I click Next, it'll just go to the next adjacent odd page, which would be 27. And then if I went ahead and clicked Next, it would take me to the first page because it's toggling or jumping in between odd and even pages and first page. Or if I didn't have a first page, it would just toggle in between odd and an even page, whichever is adjacent. So if I'm on page 2 and I want to go to an odd page and I click next, it goes to page 3. If I'm on page 30 and I click next, it goes to page 31. Because remember, what you do in one, like in an odd page footer, updates all the other odd pages, and so that's where it's jumping around. And in this case, it's different odd and even pages and the first page. So when I click next, okay, if it doesn't take me anywhere else, we're at our rope's end. So I'd have to go to previous, which is the even page, then previous, which is the different first page. Then I can click previous again, and well, forget it. It's not going to go back any further and circle around. So when I get to the end, first page, update that, click next, and then next. So for me, I think that's a little bit faster if I want to quickly jump to, well, in this case, a different footer for the odd pages or the even pages. And it works for the headers. You just have to jump to a header section, which you can come up here and click on, go to header. And then you can go to, well, there's the odd page header, click next. And if it doesn't go to an even page header, you're at the end of the rope, click previous, there's the even page header, and then what's before that? The first page header. So go ahead and use that to jump around instead of clicking and dragging and scrolling, and then clicking inside your odd page header or even page header. I find jumping around is a lot faster. Now, it's not enough to have different odd and even pages. Well, if I have a book, for my headers to have chapter 1 for the chapter 1 pages to be different from the headers for chapter 2 pages and so on. So what I need to do is I need to section them off and say, okay, for these pages, this is one section. For these pages, it's a second section for chapter 2 and so on. How do you do that? Well, come with me, neighbor. Let's go ahead and close out of the header and footer, and let's scroll down to the bottom of, well, let's go to page 4. But at the top of it, I've got a total of 4 pages, and so what I want to do is want to add some additional pages. And when I add additional pages, I don't want to add just blank pages. For example, let me come up here, click on the Layout tab, go to the Page Setup group, and click on the Breaks drop-down arrow. You got 2 sections. You have your page breaks, then you have your section breaks. Now, page breaks will go ahead and give you the break to the next page, but the section break, remember the key word is section, is that even though I get a new page, when I click on next page, it'll break it off into a separate section. As you can see, these 2 icons here, this one is one page, that one's a different page, so it does give us a new page, but look at the lines on the 2 separate pages. This one's all justified, and it's one color, and then down below, you have it what it looks like right aligned. So you can go ahead, once you add a next page, including a section break between those 2 pages that sections it off, that what you do at the top, different margins, different orientation, will stop there and not bleed over into the next page and continue on. Because not only do you get a new page, but it ropes it off or sections it off. And it also applies to headers and footers. So when I add a new page, I also want to add a new section or a section break to say, okay, at this point, I want a second section. So that will be for my chapter 2. So in the headings, I can go ahead and say, okay, this is chapter 2 on the odd pages up in the header section just for that section. And it doesn't go back up into the first section and update all that. You want to see? All right. Now, as a contrast, you don't want to just add a new blank page because that's not going to section it off and separate one group of pages from the next group of pages. So we'll go over these section breaks and page breaks a little bit more in depth in a later training video, but for right now, let me go ahead and click on next page. And then let me scroll up. And there's the code for it. Oh, make sure your codes are on. Again, Home tab, paragraph group, turn on the show codes. And you can see there's a section break, so it sections it off and gives us a new page. So how many pages do I have? You can see down below in the status bar, 5 pages instead of 4. And what page am I on? Well, the cursor's flashing there, so it's page 5 of 5. And what section? You can see down below in the status bar, I'm in section 2. And if you can't see that in the status bar, then right-click anywhere on the status bar and go up and check section. And you can see I've got a total of 2 sections. Let me click off. And so if I go ahead and I click up above this section break, what section am I now in? Section 1. If I click, well, I can't click below it because it goes to the next page, but go to the next page, I'm in section 2. So let's go ahead and take a look at that in header and footer format. So how do I get into edit my headers and footers? Well, the quickest way is to double click. So go ahead, even in the blank header area here, double click really fast, and hey, looky there. You have the tags that have, the page footer and the page header, so the header section, but in addition to that, you have sections. So there's section 1 to this point, but then we go down to the next one. In this header, that's section 2. Now this one says first page header because that's the first page of the second section, and you can have that different, just like the chapter title. Like in some books I've read where the first page for the chapter, they have nothing in there, but just in the middle of the page, chapter 2. And so you don't have to have a header or footer. That's why the first page is different. If you want to go ahead and go with different first pages, for now, each section, because section 2 is going to have a different first page. And so that comes along with it when you start sectioning off. Now I want to go ahead and add additional pages because I only have, well, for section 2, 1 page. And then for section 1, I got a total of 4. So from this point forward in section 2, I can go ahead and add additional pages, but let me get out of here and close out of the header and footer. And below the section break to next page, instead of adding, let me come up here and click on the Layout tab, go to the Page Setup group and click on Breaks. Instead of adding a next page, because I just want 2 different sections, if I click on Next Page, it's going to insert, sure, another page, but then it'll have another section, so I'll have 3 sections. I'll have section 1, section 2, and I'll have the first section 4 pages, the second section 1 page, then the third section 1 page. Right now I just want 2 separate sections, so I'll just go ahead and add additional pages. I can go ahead and click on Page, click on Breaks, add a page, or the shortcut keys Control Enter to add a page. And so now I have a total of 8 pages. In the first section I have 4, in the second I have 4. And so you can see the cursors flashing there. Down the status bar, I'm in section 2. So let me go ahead and you can scroll up, click and drag the scrolly bar. There's the section break. So there's section 1, and down below there is section 2. And let me go ahead and double click in the footer section here. Everything from that point above is section 1, everything from that point down below is section 2. So now I can go ahead and maybe not on the first page header for section 2, to say this is chapter 2, but scroll down to the next page and go ahead and say that you are chapter, and that will update on every even page within section 2, but not in section 1 because that's a different section. So let's go ahead and confirm that. So we've got the header, section 2, page 6, so page 8 should also have chapter 2. So if I go ahead and scroll down to, there we go, chapter 2, also on page 8. Now, I want to kind of throw a twist into this because it'll also update in the other section, section 1, chapter 2, on the even pages. Let me go ahead and scroll up, and it's right there in section 1, isn't it? Why? Because it's this little guy right here. He wants to link to the previous section. Well, it's not highlighted now because I'm in section 1, but when I'm in section 2, let's scroll back down and take a look at it when I click in. Section 2 here, there you go, now it's highlighted. So when you create your new sections, it automatically copies what's over from the previous section. And so any changes you make in section 2 update section 1, anything in section 1 updates section 2. And I don't want that. So if I go ahead and deselect it, it breaks the link and it just leaves chapter 2 in section 2 on the even pages. Let's confirm this and go back up onto an even page in section 1. And let's go ahead and clear that out. And because section 2 is no longer linked there, then what we delete in section 1 in the even page header section will not be deleted on the even page in section 2. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit of tweaking and work when you have things in your headers and footers and you're starting to section it off and how it links to the previous section, that when you break the link, then you have to go ahead and clear out and update it. But in any case, once the work is done, we now have 2 completely separate sections that, again, is no longer linked, so what we do in one doesn't affect the others, so I can go ahead and have for the second section, Chapter 2. And then, go to the end of Chapter 2 and add a next page break, and not just any page break, but a next page section break. Now let's go ahead and scroll back up to the first page in the second section that says, well, first page header is different from the rest of the pages in Section 2. But when I click in it, notice that that's also linked to the previous section. So it's the first page header in Section 1. So if I go ahead and say something, type in something in the first page header in Section 2, and then I scroll all the way up, then also, because it's linked to that, well, you get the idea. What we need to do is we need to go ahead and break that link. So if I hit undo, it takes me back down below into the first page header, break the link, and then go ahead and write in anything in the first page, say anything. And because it's the first page header in Section 2, again, different first page, it's not going to update anything else in the header section in Section 2, and we'll keep that there. And also, because it's not linked to the first page in Section 1, it won't update it there either. It does take some work. It's a little bit advanced for this level here, but I want to make sure that you didn't leave the header and footer training videos without understanding that, yes, you can have something more than just different odd and even pages if you go ahead and learn how to section them off. And again, we'll cover on the Layout tab the two different types of breaks, regular breaks and then a break that includes section breaks or sectioning off parts of your document. So I recommend, in addition to the headers and footers, to get a little bit more detailed and have a deeper understanding of section breaks, to watch the section break training video, and then you can come back and watch this again and have it tied and make more sense, because that's a lot to include headers and footers and also the different types of breaks. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.